we want to turn now to Dr. Ely Karmon, Senior Researcher at the Institute for Counter-Terrorism at Direkman University. Dr. Karmon, thank you very much for joining us. Well, Khamenei talking about erasing American agenda to diminish American efforts to forge a new Middle East. I'm using his words. There's not much room for interpretation here, is there?
Good evening. Yes, Iran clearly expresses its desires and strategy for so many years. So even if there is now some kind of more moderate language, actually we see that they are maneuvering on all the fronts. Their proxies, not only in Gaza, but also in Lebanon, in Syria and Iraq, and even in far away Yemen. So the Iranian goal is to try to destroy Israel, or to at least to weaken it very much, but without paying the price on their territory, on their most important strategic interest, especially the nuclear project.
But yes, again, listening to Khamenei's statements today, this notion, this Iranian notion of little Satan and big Satan, as in Israel and the U.S., as they define it, seems to be underlined. Again, talking a lot about the American dominance in the Middle East, not so much, not just about Israel. And in this respect, Dr. Karmon, Saudi Arabia, who has so far stayed out of it as much as possible, of course, is now offering to invest in Iranian economy in a bit to contain its terror activity through its proxies. But can you really throw money at this problem?
We know that already from March this year, there was an agreement sponsored by China, by the way, which improved greatly the diplomatic relationship between China, Saudi Arabia and Iran. And there were even visits at the highest level, but almost parallelly, the Saudis began the normalization process with Israel, and moreover, they tried to build a strategic alliance with the United States, which would permit them to build a nuclear project on their territory. And this worried very much the Tehran leadership, which attacked personally the Saudi leadership. And then you have the attack, 7th of October attack by Hamas. One of the main goals of this attack, clearly from the Hamas point of view, but clearly also from the Iranian point of view, was to sabotage, to derail the normalization process between Israel and the Saudis.
Yeah.
So I think that what they saw, the Saudis, especially the intervention of Yemen, the Houthis in Yemen, firing missiles above almost the Saudi territory, and also using Iraqi pro-Iranian militias against Israel, but also threatening, I think, Saudi Arabia. They are worried that the conflict will regionalize, and they prefer, like in the agreement with China, to try to assuage a bit the Iranians and find a modus operandi, at least until the end of the conflict in Gaza, and the solution, possibly a positive solution from the Saudi point of view, in Gaza itself.
And Dr. Karmon, I do want to insist on that, because the solution, or the in-between solution Saudi Arabia is coming up with is again, to pay Iran to hold back on its terror activity.
Clearly, these are economic incentives to a regime which is in a very dire situation economically, and they think that perhaps this could help at this moment. I don't believe that Iran will change, because even after the beginning of the conflict in Gaza, Saudi Arabia, MBS personally, the Crown Prince, and President Biden declared that immediately after the end of the conflict in Gaza, they will retake the negotiations for the strategic alliance with the United States, and also normalization with Israel. So the Iranians clearly are very worried about it, and the Saudis are trying to find the modus vivendi, on the one hand with the United States and Israel, and the other hand with the Iranians. So they know that economic incentives are very important for the regime. Personally, I don't think that it would work, because the Iranians are now convinced that they are in a very strong position to weaken Israel, perhaps if there is no, I would say, destruction of Hamas in Gaza, even to provoke a kind of weakness of the Israel vis-à-vis the other the other enemies, especially vis-à-vis Hezbollah in Lebanon.
And Dr. Karmon, before we let you go, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will be arriving here in Israel once again. He should really buy a new passport, so issue a new passport rather, since the beginning of this war. And much talk, of course, on the day after. The American vision is perhaps to get clearer, but when it comes to Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the Jordanian, what is their desire? What would they like to see in Gaza?
I think that the United States, President Biden has presented his views in an article in the Washington Post.
Yeah.
Personally, I have written for many years that, in my opinion, the destruction of Hamas is necessary in order to achieve some kind of expansion of the Palestinian Authority presence in Gaza, in order to stabilize, to pacify, to develop economically Gaza, and then to try to begin some kind of political negotiations between Israel and the Palestinian Authority. I'm not sure that this government is able to do or willing to do this, because we had the declarations of Prime Minister Netanyahu, but I know that many in the defense establishment and the political arena think that this is one of the best solutions, because otherwise I don't think that we have the possibility or even the resources to control Gaza for many years and to keep everything there working on the civil administrative issues.
Dr. Ely Karmon, Senior Researcher at the Institute for Counter-Terrorism at Directman University. Thank you very much, Dr. Karmon, for speaking with us.
Thank you for having me.